Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jai Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. And Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Counteracted Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. So the one day that I don't bring my other bag here, it's got the iPad in it. It's there hanging on the wall. Someone could just go get it. Yeah, you can just run and get it. Thank you. Okay. Narayanam namaskritya Narang chaiva narottamam Devim saraswatim vyasam Tato jayamudhirayet. Thank you, Guru. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, and to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Now we have to have a little time out, because I must have left that iPad sitting on one of those surfaces over there. That's what happens with old age. Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavachittam Ashloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotional service to the Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this first day of May 2023 in San Diego, on the glorious Ekadashi day, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in Canto 6, Prescribed Duties for Mankind, Chapter 11, The Transcendental Qualities of Vṛtrāsura. Yes, text 21. Oh, could someone, yeah. Aham samadhaya mano yataha naha sankarshanas touch charanada vinde tvad vajra rangho lulita gramya pasho Gatim Muner Yami Apavidha Lokaha Ahang Samadhaya Manoyatahanah Sankarshanas Tat Charanara Vinde Tvad Vajrarangho Lulita Gramya Pasho Gati Munir Yamya Pavidha Lokaha Aham Samadhaya Manoyatahanah Sankarshanas Tat Charanara Vinde Tvad Vajrarangho Lalita Gramya Pasho Gati Munir Yamya Pavidha Lokaha Ahang Samadhaya Manoyatahanah Sankarshanas Tat Charanara Vinde Tvad Vajrarangho Lulita Gramya Pasho Gati Munir Yamya Pavidha Lokaha Ahang Samadhaya Manoyatahanah Sankarshanas Tat Charanara Vinde Gramya Pasho Yamya Pavidha Lokaha Ahang Samadhaya Manoyatahanah Sankarshanas Tat Charanara Vinde Vajrangho ladita gramya pasho Katim munir yam yapavidha lokaha Aham samadhaya mano yatahanach Sankarshanastat charanarabinde Tvad vajrangho ladita gramya pasho Katim munir yam yapavidha lokaha Aham samadhaya mano yatahanach Sankarshanastat charanarabinde Tvad vajrangho ladita gramya pasho Katim munir yam yapavidha lokaha. Okay. Anyone online? Okay. Aham, I. Samadhaya, fixing firmly. Manaha, the mind. Yatha, just as. Aha, said. Naha, our. Sankarshanaha, Lord Sankarshan, Tat Chadana Arabinde, at his lotus feet, Tvat Vajra, of your thunderbolt, Ranghaha, by the force, Lulita, torn, Gramya, of material attachment, Pashaha, the rope, Gatim, the destination, Munehe, of Narada Muni and other devotees. Yami, I shall achieve. Apavidha, giving up. Lokaha, this material world, where one desires all kinds of impermanent things. Okay, so who's speaking? Vṛtrāsura. Now, Vṛtrāsura, the word Vṛtra, I think is rooted in the word avrita, which means to cover, right? So he can cover everything, as we'll soon see. He's going to swallow up Indra. Sorry, coming attractions. But he's protected by the Narayan coverage, so he breaks out. Okay. Translation. By the force of your thunderbolt, I shall be freed of material bondage, and shall give up this body and this world of material desires. Fixing my mind upon the lotus feet of Lord Sankarshan, I shall attain the destination of such great sages as Narada Muni, just as Lord Sankarshan has. Please repeat. By the force of your thunderbolt, I shall be freed of material bondage, and shall give up this body and this world of material desires. Fixing my mind upon the lotus feet of Lord Sankarshan, I shall attain the destination of such great sages as Narada Muni, just as Lord Sankarshan has said. Purport. The words aham samadhaya mana indicate that the most important duty at the time of death is to concentrate one's mind. If one can fix his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna, Viṣṇu, Sankarshan, or any Vishnumurti, his life will be successful. To be killed while fixing his mind at the lotus feet of Sankarshan, Vṛtrāsura asked Indra to release his Vajra, or thunderbolt. He, Sankarshan, was destined to be killed by the thunderbolt given by Lord Viṣṇu. There was no question of its being baffled. Therefore, Vṛtrāsura requested Indra to release the thunderbolt immediately. And he, Vṛtrāsura, prepared himself by fixing his mind at the lotus feet of Krishna. A devotee is always ready to give up his material body, which is described herein as Gramya Pasha, the rope of material attachment. The body is not at all good. It is simply a cause of bondage to the material world. Unfortunately, even though the body is destined for destruction, fools and rascals invest all their faith in the body and are never eager to return home back to Godhead. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Shri Parambara, the disciplic succession. So, this is kind of a, I don't want to say paradoxical, but it's kind of an interesting tension that's set up between Vṛtrāsura in his identity as a demon and his other identity, which is really as a devotee. So I was kind of surprised to find that he was trampling over and I assume crushing a whole bunch of the demigods because he's so huge. But I guess that was auspicious for them. They got their next bodies at the hand of a devotee. And here he's on the battlefield, but his motive is to be killed rather than to kill Indra. He doesn't want to kill Indra. Indra is going to be his salvation because he knows he's destined to be killed by that thunderbolt. So this is back and forth like this, and we'll see in a few verses, as I promised, that he's going to swallow up Indra. I guess he knows that he's protected by Narayan Kavacha, and then Indra cuts his way out. He's got with his empowered thunderbolt, and eventually he's going to behead Vṛtrāsura and kill him, but it's going to take a while. Vṛtrāsura is powerful. He's got this thick neck. It takes a whole year to cut it off his head. But Vṛtrāsura, he knows he's going back to Godhead. And Indra really doesn't know his full destination. In the previous verse we had, well, it's a win-win. You'll get your kingdom back. This is what you want, and I'll go back to God with what I want. But as we see, as it develops, there's a little glitch in that because Indra is now killing a Brahmin for the second time, right? Because Vṛtrāsura, because he was, I don't want to say conjured, but he was invoked by the sacrifice of Tvashta, right? He chanted a little backwards word to fill out, because of the plot, if you will. He wanted to get a demon to kill Indra, but he got a devotee disguised as a demon whom Indra would kill. See how important pronunciation is? He mispronounced one word. Anyway, so that was the destiny, and Chitraketu, Vṛtrāsura, he understood that this was his salvation. He had been cursed, and this is the way the curse would end, by him going back to Godhead. But there's all this back and forth, and Prabhupada, he concentrates on the essence here, which is that the most important duty at the time of death is to concentrate one's mind on Krishna. Prabhupada says, if one can fix his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna, Viṣṇu, Sankara, or any Viṣṇu Murti, his life will be successful. So everything leads up to that. And we are also enjoined to understand, which is obviously true, that we can die at any moment. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyādi, Dukkha, Doshana, Darshanam. This is one of the, I think it's 20 elements of knowledge that Krishna describes in the 13th chapter, text 8 to 11. And that's an important one. And it means that we should always have that in the back. In other words, there's no hope. The whole problem in the material life is we're hoping against hope that we can make a settlement here, that we can be happy and secure. But obviously that's insane. It requires you to push out of your mind the reality of time, the reality of the dangers of this material world, which are even greater in this age than even before, in other ages. I was just reading, some of you may remember, I think it's been 12 years now, that when we had that tremendous earthquake off the coast of Japan, which disabled a major nuclear power station right on the ocean. You know why they're all in the ocean? We have one up here at San Onofre. It's been decommissioned for a long time. But what do they do? What do they do with the spent rods, which are highly radioactive and highly dangerous? What are they going to do? They buried them right there on the beach. If there's a big tsunami and earthquake, they'll be released, and this will all be uninhabitable. Could happen at any moment. All the millions of people in San Diego will have to get out at the same time. So this is the world we live in, and now there's another one in the middle of the war in Ukraine. There's a big station that is in the middle of the war, you can imagine, you know. And if they can't keep cooling those things, then they melt down, go into the sea there, end up in the Mediterranean. All of Europe becomes uninhabitable. That's the situation that's going on. I mean, uninhabitable. It'll take a while, but everyone's got to leave. You know, it's going to be a disaster. Even the Fukushima, the water's been leaking in. I don't know if they've just dumped it all yet, but they're threatening to do that into the Pacific Ocean. Oh, that's pretty big, right? Yeah, the huge die-off since that time of various, you know, sea creatures who were sensitive to the. Next time you want to take a dip in the ocean, think about that. I mean, this is the world we live in. Everything is on a knife edge. The pandemic was a slap in the face for everybody in the world. This is the reality. There are tremendous threats out there. It doesn't matter if you're young or rich or beautiful, you know, at any time. That's the nature of this world. So to place your faith in anything material is a fool's errand. This is the grand illusion. This was quoted recently. That this material energy of mine, says Krishna, it's divine because it's connected to me, is impossible to cross over. He uses the word Duratyaya, which comes out as difficult. I'm trying to get it to say at least very difficult. You know, which Prabhupada said in the purport, he said you can't get over it. In his word by word, it says very difficult. But some in the translation just says difficult. Difficult means you can get it if you try. It's difficult to get into Harvard. It's difficult to build up your muscles. It's difficult to lose weight. But if you're really determined, you can do it. But if you're really determined to cross over this material world and you're not going to surrender to Krishna, can't do it. Impossible. So, and in the next chapter, that's chapter 7, you know, so there he says, but one can easily cross it by surrendering unto me. Why? Prabhupada explains here, and in the verse, the world of material desires, that one can cut all those knots in the heart, which we've been building up since time immemorial and which are tightened by our material activities in this world. What are those knots in the heart? All those unfulfilled material desires, those aspirations. You don't even know they're in there. But, you know, in a certain environment, it suddenly comes out, oh yeah, I really wanted to play the trombone. Now I got to go buy one, you know, and whatever. You know, there's millions of them. So those have to be cut in order to get liberation, in order to go back to Godhead. And the only way to cut it is by through in the second chapter, he calls it the sword of remembrance. It's really not, how's it go? Yadanudyasina yukta karma granti nabandhanam chindandi kovidastasa konakuya kataratim. Who would not be attracted to hear about Krishna? Because by hearing about Krishna, you sharpen that sword of remembrance. And it's so attractive to hear about Krishna's pastimes. And it's the easiest form of self-realization, you know, of yoga. So that's right there in the second chapter. In the beginning of the second canto, he talks the same thing. He says, what is it? Etavan sankhya yoga abhyam swadharma parinishtiya janmalabhak parak pangsang. Who knows the last line? Narayana smriti. That's the whole theme here. Is that whatever you do in terms of sankhya or yoga or your activities in your swadharma, you know, within varnashram, the perfection of it will be if you can remember Narayan at the end of this body. That's the whole point. And the only way you're going to be able to do that if your heart is clear of any material desires. Those material desires will bring you back for another term. So that's the basic principle of Krishna consciousness. We're all working toward. And that's why Smarta Vyaktitatam Viṣṇu Vismrtavina Jatachit, that all the other principles of Bhakti Yoga, getting up early, coming to Mangalartik, chanting your rounds, studying the Shastra, attending class, performing various services during the day, are meant to give you all different varieties of ways of thinking of Krishna and acting for Krishna positively as a devotee. And those increase your remembrance, and they weaken those material desires. That's also, this is just a science. We had this Vishayava Nivartante, Nidahanasya Dehinak, very key verse 59. Vishayava Nivartante, Nidahanasya Dehinak, Rasavarja Masopyasa Param Dishvana Vartate. So what is the meaning there? It's so, I mean, it's like right where we live. One can, by force, give up the Vishyas. You can renounce it. There's probably half of the women in this country are trying to lose weight right now. I mean, maybe that's an exaggeration, but it's not too far off. It's, you know, the body image, right? Oh, I got to be attractive. So what does it mean? I will not have a chocolate sundae every night while watching TV. No. I'm going to have a pomegranate juice instead. Boom. And, you know, this is... So you can do it, right? You can do it sometime, but the desire for that chocolate sundae is still there. That's what the meaning of this verse is. And eventually, if you don't get a higher taste, you're going to yield to it. To make up for all the ones you missed, you'll have 2 or 3 of them. You know, you're back in, I mean, that's a classic thing. You go to a fat farm, you know, where there's some association, some discipline, okay, and you get thinner. But when you get out, you come off, you fall off the wagon, you know, and you're back where you started from. Just like some alcoholics, you know. Don't even walk by a bar. What does speak of go in one, you know? Oh, all my friends are in it. I'll just sit there and have an orange juice. Right. And before you know it, you're staggering out of the bar. So this is material world, is that we implant these material desires by contemplating the object of the senses and then engaging the senses in them. And that you get some pleasure there, there's no question of it, but it has a beginning and an end, and it leaves a very, very poisonous residue, which is the desire to do it again. And that's why my favorite verse, I think I'll quote it every class now, just make a principle. Yehi sangsparjaja boka dukkha yonaya evate ajadavantam koteya nateshu namate bada. And this is hopefully the translation that we can have going forward. The pleasures that are due to material senses contacting their sense objects are sources of misery. They have a beginning and an end. And for those 2 reasons, they're temporary, plus they drag you more into for those reasons, the wise don't take pleasure there. Okay, but we're pleasure-seeking beings. Where are we going to take a pleasure? Previous verse. Bhaya sparshesh asaktatma vindatyatmana yat sukham sab brahma yoga yuktatma sukham akshayam ashnute. Who knows what this phrase, sukham akshayam, means? Unbreakable, unbroken, constant, you know, forever. You can't get that in any mind of material happiness. It's the illusion that you can, but you can't. It always has a downside, as we described. So what does that verse say? Bhaya sparshesu. This word sparsha is interesting. Sparsha literally means to touch. So you say, okay, well, it's, you know, like this. But literally all the senses touch their sense objects. Even the hearing, the ear is touched by the sound. I mean, the scientists will tell you how it causes the eardrum to vibrate and everything. So there's this literally this touch. But he said, Bhaya sparshesu, external touching, asaktatma, give it up. Bhaya sparshesu asaktatma, vindityatmani sukham, enjoying the pleasure within. Touching the consciousness to Krishna, you see, through the agency of the material mind and senses. This is how this mind and senses become purified. And, you know, by using them to contact Krishna, beginning with the ear, beginning with hearing. And then chanting, hearing and chanting. That's why they're beginning with the tongue. Well, you can't chant anything unless you hear something. So that's the whole process, is because Krishna is all attractive, even though we have to drag our mind, you know, to hear the holy name, because our senses have become jaded by exposure to matter, by material sense gratification. But that's where the association with the devotees and the spiritual master, the higher intelligence. If we purify the intelligence, we get the will to take our senses, which are rascals, you know, they're addicted to this, and the mind, and force it to think of Krishna. You know, so this is Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Oh my God, come back. You know, what are you thinking about that? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Really? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And I'm telling you, the verses are a great help. The shlokas, because there's intellectual content there. You know, that's why I wanted to say, while I was singing that song, you know, the Yasomati Nandana. If you take the time, and it's available, that's why I bought these songbooks. They're kind of tattered now, but there's many of them intact. It's in there. Find the Yasomati, and I took the trouble to put in all the word by word meanings, because unless you have the word-by-word meanings, you can't look at it, memorize it. You don't have to memorize the song. Just check out the meanings. Yashomati Nandana, Braja Badana. What is this Braja Badanaga? Oh, he's the greatest hero in Braja, you know. That's what it means. Yashomati Nandana, the beloved son of Yashodamayi. And he's just evoking the pastimes. That's why he has this line in there. Amala Harinamami Avilasa. That these pure names are filled with the pastimes of Krishna. That's the whole idea. That is that the names invoke the pastimes. This one that who sang it? It was Dayaniri. Yeah. Vibhavari Shesha Aloka Pravesha. The night is over. Wake up. You know, now let's get up and sing these wonderful names of Krishna. And they invoke the pastimes. Many of you, if you haven't been to Vrindavan and for Mangalarti, you may not know that they don't sing the Mangalarti in the temple, the Guru Vashtaka that we sing. They sing it at Prabhupada Samadhi, which is a short walk. It's like 100 feet from the temple. So they sing that there. So you have to come a little earlier. I think about 10 minutes earlier for Mangalarti. And then everyone traipses over to the temple and sings this song. Vibhavari Shesha Aloka Pravesha. And I'm telling you, Prabhupada's recording of this is so moving. He's absorbed in these names, and the devotion is coming out. You can, if you can't find it in the archives, I'll send it to you. And Shivaram Swami, I remember he said, this is my favorite song because of the bhakti that's there. So every name evokes a pastime. And it's very simple. You just study that. Yes, what is Yasamad? Kaliya Damana. Oh, yeah, he's chastising Kaliya. So when you see that picture, you can see the painting in your mind. It's a meditation. So anyway, that's the value of these books and all of the sound vibration. It gives you the reason why you should absorb your mind in Krishna, and it gives you the content to remember Krishna. And of course, that expands to all the writings of the Goswamis. Rupa Goswamis, and I mean, it's all based on Bhagavatam and the books that follow Bhagavatam. So that's the program, is that we have the understanding why we need to transform our consciousness, purify our consciousness and senses. We know that because otherwise it's going to lead to tremendous suffering. This is the illusion that Maya puts you in. Well, things are pretty okay now. Why worry about the future? Just live in the present. That's the mode of ignorance. I mean, it's in the mode of ignorance when the present you're reconciling yourself to just live a material life. It's not so bad. These Hare Krishnas, they're so pessimistic. I'm all right. How many people do you meet? I'm good, right? And what do you say? You could be better. Do you take that? It's a brilliant mind. And refined over years. The way that you can convince people to get their attention. And that they don't know, people don't know, they're walking by that, the table in the park. Thousands of people probably walk by without coming to the table, some come. That their salvation is sitting there. The books, the devotee is there, that the most fortunate thing that happened to them today, or in their life, is to encounter a devotee and the books that can actually give them a clue of their eternal life and the blissful life in Krishna consciousness. So that all we can do is offer it to them in the most attractive way, and it's up to the souls to take part of it. And it's up to us how much we want to be serious about our sadhana and about our service and really understanding this wonderful gift that we've been giving. I finally put off the writing of the meaning of Vyasa Puja till the deadline, which is today. So I'm going to have to do that. I have never written one. I've just solicited others to write them, but now this year they want me to write. So what are the thoughts, I mean, I've checked out some of the wonderful meanings that have been written over the years. They're all in the Veda-base, in the Vyasa Puja books. And it's such an important day, this, Vyasa Puja day, because we recognize it's like a Mangal Artik for the whole day, or like a Guru Puja for the whole day. Because each day, when we sing this Mangal Artik song, the Guru Vashtaka, we're really expressing our gratitude for everything that Srila Prabhupada has given.
And it's been so nicely formulated by Vishwanath Chakravarti in his song. You know, Sangsara Dhava Nalalita Loka Tranaya. That's the first word. It's a compound word, and it describes Sangsara Dhava Nala. Yes, samsara, this world of birth, death, old age, and disease, is just like a forest fire, and we're suffering in it. All people are lidha. Lidha means suffering. Sangsara Dhavana Lidha Loka. Loka is the people. Tranaya. He's delivering those who would take the gift. How? By raining down like a merciful cloud all the gifts of Krishna consciousness, the holy name, the instruction, the shastra, the association, the prasadam, the temples. All of that is part of the merciful rain that Srila Prabhupada has come down. And he himself is like a cloud of mercy, And so that's, the heart should feel tremendous gratitude. Here we are, so fortunate to be present at, Mangal Artik, the auspicious time of the day, and most auspicious vibrations, and chanting the glories of the most extraordinary Acharya in recent history, who risked his life and gave everything to give us Krishna consciousness. What could be more of a expression of love and devotion and mercy than that? And so that appreciation, that's really what Dasa Puja is about. It's just extended over a whole day. You hear devotees' appreciations in the book, which is, I'm not responsible for this year, I'm just trying to advise them. So, but it's a good sacrifice. And so that should be our life. You should carry that through the day. That's me. I'm doing this now, because this is, my duty's been given to me by Srila Prabhupada and his followers, and it's helping me be Krishna conscious, and it's helping others be Krishna conscious. Maintenance of this temple is a very important preaching act, It's like my friend Tyler has given me strong indication that he's going to clean up, or have cleaned up that fountain today. So it's kind of something, we know why it's like that, because it's millions of petals. But it's another task, and Krishna is so kind. It's renewed each day. The cleaning has to be done, the cooking has to be done, various things, the deity schedule. So that regulation helps us to remember more and more Krishna. And so this is what the end of life is looking at. Of course, mine is a lot closer than yours. So I'm thinking, I got to get really serious, and maybe I'll chant. Maybe I'll, devote one day to chant 64 rounds. I was thinking of doing that. It may happen soon. You may not see me on. I'm not going to tell you the day, but but I mean, this is. How many times have we heard you chant constantly? Well, how can you chant constantly when you take rest? You just conk out, a million dreams can come. If you remember to chant in your dreams, you're doing pretty good. But why don't we chant? In other words, Krishna's all attractive, right? We know that, and we've experienced to some degree the nectar of Krishna consciousness. But that material condition is so strong that we voluntarily forget in order to taste again the bitter sweet, this really bitter poison of Maya happiness, of sense gratification. As I pointed out, Sanskrit is such a wonderful language. The close association between the word Vishaya, the Sanskrit, what is that? Vishaya manivartante, and the word Visha, poison. Visha means poison, Vishaya means sense gratification. If we just remember that, probably we'll be less inclined to try to enjoy sense gratification. But Krishna is so many. Let me just, if I could just share a few of the verses that have been sustaining me in Krishna consciousness for the last 50 years. Here's a verse from Govinda Lilamrita. It's not very intimate, but it's very wonderful. And I think I chanted this one. It's just a meditation on Krishna coming back from the forest, with the cows, into the village. And we know from reading Krishna book, you read the Dhenukasura chapter, how the gopis, they ran out of their homes to greet Krishna, with their bee-like eyes, drinking the honey of his lotus face. This is right from the Bhagavatam, And but it's a whole anticipatory thing. They have a little thing on the roof where they go up with Mother Yashoda, so they can see farther into the forest, and if there's a little puff of, dust, they say, oh, that's the dust from the cows. They're coming back. And you hear that? Was that the flute? This is their anticipation. Oh, it's coming. It's a great festival of return, because they've been separated all day, So this is a meditation just on one verse of Krishna as he comes back in the forest. And listen for the poetry. Unless you're deaf, you're going to hear the Sanskrit poetry. Denu vrindamanamandamantam venu gitamamatam visajantam renu rushitalalakavantam kenu viksasamayor namudantam. It rhymes at the beginning and end of each line. This is why Krishna's Kaviraj is called Kaviraj, for writing the Lilamrita with verses like this, which is so extraordinary and wonderful. So it's a simple verse. Denu vrindam. Denu is the cows, Surabhi cows. Vrindam means groups or herds, the herds of cows. Anumandamayantam. Anumanda means he's following very leisurely. He's walking behind the cows. Anumandamayantam. And as he does so, Venu Gita Mamatam Visrajantam. He's playing that Venu, the flute. And the song, which is just like nectar, is emanating, Venu Gita Mamatam Visrajantam. He's creating this beautiful melody. And what's the word for dust? Renu. So now you have Denu, Venu, and now you have Renu. Renu, Denu Vrindamanamanamayantam, Venu Gita Mamatam Visrajantam, Renu Rushitalalakabantam. So, Alakabantam means his beautiful blackish hair, which is Renu Rushita, which is moving backward, forward gently as he strolls behind those cows playing his flute. And there's all this very auspicious Braj Raj. At first when I heard about Braj Raj Gopal, I thought his name was Braj Raj. Braj Raj is dust of Braj. It's all very auspicious. So they're kicking it up, and it's powdering his hair beautifully, So Renu Rushita Chalalakabantam Kenu Viksha Samayur Namadantam, who seeing this sight would not enter into the highest levels of bliss. Mood anta. Mood is a word for joy, or ananda in this case. Anta means the end point. Who would not experience the highest joy by seeing this vision? Now, by chanting that verse, if you understand the meaning of the words, you can chant it more than once. You can chant it 10 times. And you'll see that picture in your mind's eye. Come on, how many novels did we read before we joined Krishna consciousness? Of course, the idea is it invokes an image, it invokes a feeling and everything. So that's just one verse. And there's so many... Bhagavatam is filled with verses like that. So the point I'm trying to make is that we have all of this wonderful facility for deepening our remembrance of Krishna, which is the gold standard. That's what we're trying to get, so that it comes at the point of 24 hours that we're thinking of Krishna, and therefore we're ready for anything. Ready for death, we're ready for the atom bomb, for the next calamity, for the madman who walks into the temple with an AR-15. Could happen at any moment. This is the world we live in. So we need to be serious about deepening our Krishna consciousness, our remembrance of Krishna. That's what this is all about. Even this dramatic scene, with this huge demon who's not a demon, great fighter, wants to be killed, and Indra's cooperating. And then Vṛtrāsura will go back to Godhead and see the Sankarshan. And Indra will be shunned, actually, by the other demigods because he killed another Brahmin. You'll see. And then he sees personified sinful reactions in the form of an old lady, tubercular lady, running after him. It's quite dramatic. I'm thinking, it would be a great movie, as I said. And what to do? So he hides in Manasarovar, the lake, for like 1,000 years, breathing through a straw. Who gets the better deal, Vṛtrāsura or Indra? You figure it out. All right, I'll stop there. Any questions, comments, locally or remotely? All right, I'm going to leave you with one poem. This is not a Sanskrit poem, but it's based on a painting. You've seen this painting. We don't have one in the temple here. Krishna's sitting on a rock in the forest, got cushions on, I guess, and he's very beautiful, obviously, and he's got a little dove on his hand, and he's got a swan in front of him, and there's a deer and a little cow, and he's reciprocating with all of them. So, Govinda's, how's it go? Oh, the sweetness of Sri Krishna's form beguiles. Still sweeter is his face, like autumn moon. But sweeter than the sweetest is his smile, whose luscious beauty makes the gopis swoon. Govinda's beauty captivates the doves, the swans, the deer, the cows, and every tree. Indeed, in Braja, every creature loves Sri Krishna and is drowned in ecstasy. That all-enchanting land is paradise. our home where we may dwell eternally. Most welcome there are those who pay the price to learn to love Sri Krishna perfectly. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol! Why are you so silent? Were you back from pilgrimage? You don't have to answer that. You can take the fifth. You don't know what that is. What's your question, Babu?
Dravida Prabhu, please. You're very kind and about pranams. Prabhu, can you read the sentence in the purport related to Gramya Pasha?
Yes, Gramya Pasha. Yes, I'll read it.
Yes.
I'm looking at it right now. A devotee is always ready to give up his material body, which is described herein as Gramya Pasha, the rope of material attachment.
Yes, thank you very much. You're very kind. Prabhu, based on this quote, my question is, if the material body is not different, at least in a sense, at least in some sense, to a rope, and if the recommendation, the Bhakti, the recommendation coming from the Bhakti process, for us to make spiritual advancement is not different from making the best use of a bad bargain. My question is, how to make the best use of a rope?
Okay, yeah, I can see the root of your question, where it comes from. A devotee is always ready to give up his material body, which is described herein as Gramya Pasha, the rope of material attachment. So, let me put it this way. The body is, this physical body that we have in the present life, is a result of all of the unfulfilled attachments and desires that we had in our last life. In other words, those ropes, it's a rope in the sense of it facilitates or contains in our subtle body the ropes of attachment, because it's similar to the knot. I think I gave this, these Hridaya Grunti is common, and these are knots made out of rope, strong rope, of attachment to things in the material world that we cannot fulfill, in this body. And so we get another body to do it. So a devotee is always ready to give up his material body, but not his spiritual body. The material body can be spiritualized by engaging it in devotional service. And then it's no longer a burden that we're really anxious to give up. We leave that up to Krishna, the time. This is that verse. Forgive me, Prabhu, there's one long verse in the Prayers of Personified Vedas which precisely deals with this subject. And I'm going to chant the Sanskrit. Twadanupatam kulayam in the mapma surit priyavat chadaditaton nuketu hite priyatmanicha napadadaman jaho asadupasanayatma hano yadanusaya brahme udubaye kushadiyadipata. Which means that the particular personified Veda who's singing this verse, he says the human form of body, the human body is perfectly suited to serve you. And when someone uses the human body and all its senses and mind in serving you, then the body becomes his friend. It's not something that we want to give up. It's something that we know we'll eventually have to give up, but in the meanwhile we can use it as paraphernalia for serving Krishna. So it becomes his best friend, the very body that's holding it. And on your side, as a super soul, you're very pleased inside and you're directing the service. Everything is very nice. But alas, those who don't take their pleasure in serving you, but instead worship the impermanent, in the Bible it says worshiping mammon, worship the impermanent, they're committing spiritual suicide, atmahano. And they're destined to live in the body trying to fulfill all these unfulfillable desires, and then getting all kinds of very inauspicious bad bodies, which are sources of great fear. This is the choice we have. So, but a devotee is always ready to give up his body. In other words, prepared at every moment. We don't know when that'll happen. But as long as we have the body and the body is good, we should maintain it. Prabhupada said, take enough prasadam, stay warm, maintain your health, because it's your tool for serving Krishna. And but be prepared at any moment because of the vicissitudes, the unpredictability of this material world, that it may happen. So therefore, if you're always remembering Krishna, you're on the safe side. That's the idea. The Gramya Pasha, the Gramya is like Gramya Kata, materialistic talks. Here is materialistic desires and ropes. The body itself is not necessarily the rope of material attachment, but it 99% of the time in the material world, the body is, including the mind, the subtle body, and the heart, is beset with all of these material desires that we have cultivated, which are just like these ropes of Kramya Pasha. That's the idea here. I think that, so the body is not at all good means that ultimately it's just a repository of all kinds of diseases. We don't want to prolong it. Certainly don't want another one. But while we have the body, this is the whole art and science of bhakti. Use it, what we have, those things which will otherwise bind us in the service of Krishna. Cut those knots, cut those ropes, and when the body finally expires, you, the soul, go back to Godhead, where you get another body, spiritual body, which is perfectly suited to serve Krishna for eternity. That's the best I can do on that one, Prabhu.
Yes, Dravida Prabhu has to be expected, very helpful.
Okay.
Again, outstanding answer to my question. And if I may, I liked it when you said that as soon as we spiritualize the body becomes a friend.
Yeah, that's right from the Bhagavatam.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Yeah, send me an email. I'll send you the reference for that. You can look it up yourself. Okay?
Of course, Prabhu, I'll send it.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Okay. Is that Dhanavari?
Yes, Prabhu. Is that okay to ask question?
Okay, quick one.
Okay. When you, there is a slok, yehi sanspraja bhoga dukkhayoniva evacha. So in that regards, I'm just making sure that I understand right. So when that means even when we touch like other material body, means like when we come into contact or relationship with family members and all, and then we get dukh. So sometimes I'm thinking that that's true in practical life in a material world, but then isn't the body has a soul? So that is why we get dukh, because body, that's not material, like body can, but you just explained that body can be
spiritualized.
Spiritualized, so that we can understand it, that contact. When you just explain, when Vijay Krishna Prabhu asked this question, does it apply?
Yeah, it's a fact that throughout the Bhagavatam, as we know, family life, which is not centered on service to Krishna, that's Gramya. That's not Grahastha ashram, but it's Grihamedi. And so that we have to try. Knowing that, we have to try to center the family life on Krishna service as much as possible, and at a certain point, purify entirely. To retire from that. Now it's much more difficult for women to do that. But still, those attachments they're mixed, just like Kunti Devi. She's such a great devotee, but she still asks Krishna, please sever my ties to my children, her exalted Pandavas, Yudhishthira, great devotees. But still, there's an element there of material attachment. So she's saying, please sever them. And then what's that famous prayer? Beautiful prayer. I'll end with this, And we can pray like this, Dhanavari. We can pray to Krishna, this exact words. Tvaime nannibhishaya muti madhupate sakrit ratamudvahatara gange baugamudandvati. O Madhu's Lord, or Madhava, O Madhava, please ever fill my mind with thoughts of Thee, not any other kind. As Ganges torrent flows into the sea, let all my love flow constantly to Thee. So that's the what we have to do with that. Okay? We can discuss it.
Thank you so much,
further.
Prabhu. Hare Krishna, wonderful answer, and thank you for the sloka and everything, the references.
You're welcome. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol. And that ends our class for this morning.